Hey everyone, my name is Alex Ramsby. I'm an MSP consultant here at Profile Tech. Today I wanted to go over a way that you can extend the framework of Automate and be able to build automation further within the system. Let's get into it. So today we're going to build an auto-join search, but not using any of the tables that are custom built within Automate. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be using PowerShell to gather some data. We're going to populate that into an EDF, and then we're going to utilize that EDF in an advanced search, and then we're going to take that advanced search and toss it into a group. And then from there, that is your foundational level to then apply automation from that. So a good way to really tack on from there is you could then set up a monitor, you could set up a script to further deploy things out. This is the foundational layer to that. So what you're going to do first is you're going to come over to System, Configuration Dashboard, come down to Config, Configurations, Additional Fields. For the sake of time in the video here, I've set up one just called My Custom EDF. If you're not sure, you'll come up to a window like this. There's several videos out there from Profile here that you could probably find that are just how these are set up and how to use them. Again, for the sake of time, I just set up one on the Computers tab, give it a quick tooltip, and then under the Alex's Experimental tab. I left this one not editable on purpose so that as we're doing the video here, you are not able to edit the field directly. You have to update it either via SQL, if you're familiar with that, or you have to do it via script, but it is not human editable. You can't open up the EDF and then start typing. And that is for a reason, so that the auto-join searches and things work properly. But if you totally don't need that, you can definitely leave that unchecked. But with that, we need something to actually update the EDF. So with that, we'll hop into a script. And I actually have that open here. So inside of here, I have a PowerShell script running. This is super simple. I'm running execute script. Script type is PowerShell, that's fine. I'm running just a get net IP configuration. We should see something like this above. So we're going to get a ton of information here. I'm basically doing IP config, but through the PowerShell method. Maybe I'm looking for, DNS server for IPv6 on a tail-scale network. Who knows? But basically, I'm just going to gather that data. I'm going to output it to a variable. So @psout. And then what I'm going to do next is I'm going to take a function that you may or may not know about called extra data set value and extra data get value. So you can do the inverse and then say get. Right now, we're going to actually update it. And this long list here is all in alphabetical order. So I'm just going to come down to my custom EDF. One thing to note here, the identifier at the end is this little subtext. 1 equals computer, 2 equals location ID, etc. These are what the EDF is located on. So if you do have several at the same name, totally possible if you have like exclusion for deployment and things like that. Just keep an eye on which one you're picking. I knew that this one is at the computer level, and I think it's the only one called My Custom EDF. But if you do have multiple names, just make sure you pick the right one. ID, this one's easy to remember. I copy exactly what the tooltip says. Whatever I'm identifying the computer as, in this case, I'm just calling it the computer. It could be @client ID, @location ID. Those are also two options. But in this case, @computer ID. And then the last thing is this is what I want to populate it with. And in this case, it's just an automate variable psout, which which we have right here. So I'm going to gather the data, I'm going to update the data, and that's it. For the sake of time, again, I have run this on a Windows machine. And if I come down to the gear and come down to extra data fields, I'll come down to this section here, looking at Alex's experimenting tab. And notice I can't type here. I'm clicking things on my keyboard. However, it looks like it hasn't run, but that's because there's lots of spaces. If I click view, all of this is the actual data on this machine. So what I can then do is if I'm looking for like this particular information or anywhere there's a Hyper-V network or something, depending on what you ideally you want to pull back specific one line of information. But if you do pull something like this, we can still use that. So now I know it's here. What I want to do next is actually build a search. So come down to advanced searches, and then there's an extra data field search query that we can use, and then use the word contains if it's not going to be the exact name. So what I want to do is I want to say and computer extra data field. And then of course, depending on how many you have, you got to find the right one you're looking for. So I'm going to come down to the Alex Experimenting tab, and I want the My Custom EDF. And you don't want it to say equals because that's going to be too specific unless yours is very specific. I want to say contains, and maybe I just want to look for Hyper-V. And if I hit search, I'm not going to get anything, probably because it's Hyper-V. And now I can see I've selected that machine strictly based on what's in the EDF. And so this is super helpful. And then what you can do from here is you can then save it, build a group, and we'll go ahead and do that here. Alex is testing, delete. I'll just do that. I'll hit save. And now if I come over to groups, I think you see where this is going. I can then build a quick group that says auto join search that as the search. So come back up to browse here. Come over to groups. What I want to do is, in this case, because I don't know, I can delete this one later. I'll just select the top level, right click and say create group. Come over to the right hand side here when this loads, and I will find that Alex's testing delete EDF. Depending on what your search method is, I want to limit it to search only where that EDF is detected. I don't want to be adding manual machines. If it doesn't meet that, kick it out. So if I hit preview run, I see that one is not in group, but it will join. I'll hit auto join now just to kick it off. And in this case, I'll say like IP networking contains Hyper-V. You ideally want something very specific in the name, and then 100% please put notes in the bottom of your group looking for where all EDFs that I made contain Hyper-V. Please put a note in here, because when you come back and you've either moved on to a different MSP, or you've moved on from a different position, or maybe you moved up within the company, you don't want to remember what exactly the group was set or why it was there, or even is it valid anymore. Just make a note. This is exactly what the group has done. This is what it's supposed to be. Create. And then from here, your next level of automation is going to be under scheduled scripts, setting up a new monitor, setting up a remote monitor, whatever you're trying to do from here. This is just the data gathering in the foundational layer. This is a great way to actually gather the data, because that net IP information might actually be within Automate, but is it in that format? Probably not. Thanks for watching. We post a new video every week to share our knowledge on Automate. To learn more about what we do, please visit proveltech.com. There's a link in the video description below.